Your right to know.
It's 6 o'clock. Good evening. Here's the news at 6 on Impact Business Radio, Ibr92.5 FM. First, the headlines. Senate passes bills to establish federal universities in FCT and Rivers State. Federal government approves immediate evacuation of Nigerians from Ukraine, Poland, others. Clergymen advises Christians to engage in charity and almsgiving during Lenten period. Former INEC chairman Jega says Nigeria is in the process of collapsing, decries bad governance. And on the foreign scene, China calls on its nationals to remain calm in the face of rising discrimination. Now the news in detail. I am Toluwaleke Ali. The Senate has passed 2 bills to establish a federal university in the Federal Capital Territory and Rivers State. The 2 bills are the FCT University of Science and Technology, Abaji Bill, and the Federal University of Environmental Technology, Rivers State Bill. The bills were passed after the consideration of 2 separate reports presented by the Committee on Tertiary Institutions and Tertiary Education Trust Fund. Presenting the report as plenary today, the Vice Chairman of the committee, Sandy Onu, said the bills will provide the legal framework needed by the institution to close the knowledge gap in science and technology. It will also allow for academic and professional programs leading to the award of its first degrees, postgraduate degrees, and diplomas with special emphasis on environmental technology and research. Both bills to establish the federal universities were passed by the chamber after consideration by the Committee of the Whole. Meanwhile, 2 bills seeking to establish the Federal College of Education in Kwara State and Alvan Ikoku Federal University of Education have also passed second reading in the State Senate. A bill seeking to amend the 2022 Appropriation Act has scaled second reading in the Senate. The bill seeks to amend the 2022 budget by making provision for capital and recurrent expenditures without increasing budget deficit. The bill also seeks to include additional provision for the payment of petrol subsidy, which was not provided for in the Act. President Buhari had written to the National Assembly asking the legislature to replicate capital projects in the 2022 Appropriation Act. Similarly, the President has again written to the Senate to amend the recently signed Electoral Act 2022. The President urged the lawmakers to consider the outright deletion of the section which calls for the resignation of political appointees before party primaries.
In the 2022 Appropriation Act to provide for a total sum of 106,161,499,052 naira only for capital expenditures and 43,870,592,044 naira only for recurrent expenditures and for other matters connected there with 2022 second reading taken.
You know, the core ingredient of democracy is the ability for people to choose their leader freely without encumbrance. Once you can choose people that you want to lead you, and the people that knows they are not performing can be removed easily, democracy is taking root in Nigeria. If you look at some very important clauses in that bill, we are going to get our electionary processes right now. And once we get our electionary processes right, the people who are elected into office will begin to do what people want, because if you don't do what people want, you'll be removed. One of the provisions that is a watershed in that bill is the electronic accreditation of voters and electronic transmission of voters. That is, you are not just coming for biometric recognition. It takes all of your facial structure and everything to authenticate that you are the real voters that is coming to vote. Now, number two is that we have eliminated the opportunity of ballot snatching, violence, thuggery, because right from the polling booth, election will be transmitting to the collation centers. So there is no need for anybody carrying ballot from point A to point B to point C. Okay, so and it's real time. As people are voting, it is being transmitted and it's going to the collation. Well, we cannot rule out cyber crimes, hacking of electronics and the digital devices, but that's a matter for another day. We are going to be improving on our procedure as we continue. This is a watershed. I commend President Muhammadu Buhari and his team, the National Assembly, for their perseverance and patience to come out with this bill that is going to revolutionize election, bring electronic balance to our voting in Nigeria.
In another development, the Senate President Ahmed Lawan has urged President Buhari to transmit the Petroleum Industry Act to the National Assembly for amendment. Lawan made the call today while reading the President's request for the amendment of the 2022 Appropriation Act. The Senate President said the Petroleum Industry Act will enable the National Assembly extend the subsidy regime. It will be noted that the present subsidy regime is expected to lapse in June in accordance with the provisions of the Petroleum Industry Act. He also directed relevant oil and gas committees of the National Assembly to engage the executive on a bill to amend the Petroleum Industry Act to align with the President's request. The Nigerian Labour Congress (NLC) and the Nigerian Union of Local Government Employees (NOGE) has urged the National Assembly to vote in favor of autonomy for local government and judiciary in the ongoing constitutional amendments. Speaking in Abuja, the president of the Nigerian Labour Congress, Ayuba Waba, said the autonomy of the local government is paramount to strengthening democracy for the effective delivery of good governance and national development. In his remarks, the majority leader of the House of Representatives, Al-Hassan Dugawa, assured the unions that the House remains committed to the welfare of the people and will deliver on its expectations.
Senators and honorable members, one, to support the ongoing process of constitutional amendment, and to reiterate the fact that on three core issues, we want the National Assembly to vote unanimously in support of those issues. One is the autonomy for the local government system. The local government system, if allowed to work effectively, it will address the myriad of challenge that is affecting the Nigerian society. Today, local government system is in the pocket of few. In fact, the allocation to local government have become pocket money for the boys. We want that to stop. We want a system where in administration, in finances, even in the election, there should be a process where there should be full autonomy for the local government. The second issue is the judiciary, principle of separation of power, where the three arms of government are supposed to have separate power, separate authority, and separate autonomy. And therefore, we are aware that the state houses of assembly have been under also some siege, and it has been difficult to pass
to the converted. The four issues raised by the President of the Nigerian Labour Congress, as mentioned here, have been succinctly captured in our report, which is right now before the House of Representatives for final consideration. I want to assure you that the House of Nigerian people, the House of Representatives, under his leadership, Right Honorable Femi Bajabiamila, will not renege in our commitment to continue to deliver on the expectations of Nigerian people. We will continue to deliver on the promises we have made to our people during the electioneering campaign. And I want to say also, without fear of contradiction, this is one only time in the history of the National Assembly. It's one only time in the history of the Nigerian Labour Congress when the Labour and the House of Representatives are working on the same page.
The federal government has approved $8.5 million to facilitate the evacuation of 5,000 Nigerians from Ukraine, Poland, Romania, Hungary, and Slovakia. The Minister of State for Foreign Affairs, Ibr92.5FM, made this known today while speaking with newsmen shortly after the Federal Executive Council meeting in Abuja. Dada said the approval followed a joint memo presented by the Ministries of Foreign Affairs and Humanitarian Affairs, Disaster Management at the Council meeting. It noted that the evacuees include 940 from Romania, 150 from Slovakia, and 350 from Poland who have registered to leave. The Catholic Archbishop of Abuja, Most Reverend Ignatius Kaigama, has advised Christians to engage in charity and almsgiving during the Lenten season. Kaigama gave the advice today as Christians mark the Ash Wednesday, which signified the beginning of a 40-day Lent. The clergyman noted that the life of Christians will be complete only when we show love, support, and share with the poor in the society. He called on political leaders to deliver on their mandate by which they were elected into office, adding that some leaders lack the disposition to make their offices function properly. Kaigama maintained that the leaders must be upright and follow the teachings of the Holy Book at all times. Meanwhile, Christians across the nation have been asked to reflect and live a life of worship, devotion, and penitence in commemoration of Ash Wednesday, which marks the beginning of Lent. Ayodele Fakeye completes the report.
Each year, Ash Wednesday marks the beginning of Lent. The day, often referred to as the Day of Ashes, is a solemn reminder of human mortality and the need for reconciliation with God. It is often symbolized by placing ashes in the shape of a cross on the forehead of the entire congregation. While speaking on the significance of Ash Wednesday, Father Monsieur Fadeyi said the Day of Ashes is focusing people's hearts on repentance and prayer through personal and communal confession, stressing that it is a time of reflection and penitence leading up to Easter Sunday.
ṣùgbọ́n nígbà tí a bá tún ṣe àwọn nǹkan ìsìn wa mìíràn nítorí ẹ̀ ló fi jẹ́ pé ní gbogbo ìgbà ká máa ronú sí ìgbésí ayé wa ká máa mọ̀ ní pàtàkì ìgbà tá a bá dẹ́ṣẹ̀ kò sí ẹ̀ṣẹ̀ tó kéré jù Ọlọ́run ti sọ fún wa wípé kò sí bí ẹ̀ṣẹ̀ wa náà ti lè pọ̀ tó tá a bá ti fi lè jẹ́wọ́ rẹ̀ pẹ̀lú inú mímọ́ òun yóò wẹ̀ wá mọ́.
Also speaking, Sacrist Victor Ajiboye explained that apart from the practice of praying, fasting, and giving to the needy, the most important thing is people's attitude and the heart behind the practices.
Season of Lent, there are three things that is mandatory for all of us to do. The first one is that we should intensify our prayer life, but our prayer life will not be of showing off. Then the second aspect of it is that we should remember the poor people. Then we should be charitable to them, but not trumpeting everything that I'm doing this thing for someone, but we should be in privately so that the God will reward us. Then the third aspect is that we should abstain, that we should fast. In Catholic Church, they already mandated that from 18 years to 59, all the money that you normally use for, maybe you take beer, you buy recharge card, you can keep it and use it for the charity.
He added that there is a need for Christians to abstain from some meals and live in holiness.
On this day, that is on Wednesday, Ash Wednesday, we should abstain from eating meat. we should abstain from it. Then, throughout this season, we should abstain from eating meat on Wednesday and Friday. And we advise all of us to live a holy life, because nobody knows the time or the hour that God will call us.
On their part, some church members, Akinwusi Olabanjo and Komolafe Charles, likewise said the day is a time to reflect and to live a lifestyle of worship and devotion.
This time, we have to come closer to God. This time, we will fast, but it's not by force. In the Catholic Church, from 18 to 59. This time, you give alms, you go to people's home, you make yourself available at any time to worship God.
Normally, the attitude of Christians for this period is at least to sober, to let the Christian knows that the Christ has died for us. And we must let everybody in the community knows that at least we are still emulate the Christian life.
Ash Wednesday derives its name from the placing of ashes on the foreheads of people to the dictum, remember that you are dust, and to dust you shall return. Ayodele Fakeye, Impact Business Radio News.
The former chairman of the Independent National Electoral Commission, INEC, Amutajero Jega, says Nigeria is in the process of collapsing. This is as he noted that political leaders who cannot deliver on their mandate now control the process of governance and blindly running the country aground. Speaking today in Abuja, Jega noted that considering the current situation of the country, the 2023 general elections may be the make or break epochal moment. Jega said the issue of national emancipation for credible national development beneficial to the Nigerian people must be raised high on the front banner of national discourses, while calling that all hands to be on deck to prevent the country from the alleged imminent collapse. The former INEC boss called on the federal government to be proactive in putting an end to the challenges facing the country. Governor Godwin Obaseki of Edo State has reconstituted a committee to boost the state government's response to the outbreak of Lassa fever epidemic. Speaking with newsmen today, the State Commissioner for Health, Obehi Akoria, said the state has recorded 136 cases of Lassa fever since the outbreak of the epidemic, with 13% fatality rate. In a bid to expand residents' access to lending their voices to government's policies and programs, the Osun State government has launched a web platform. Speaking with newsmen, the special advisor to the state government on civic engagement, Olatunbosu Onyetiloye, said the platform will bridge the gap between government and people and as well as strengthen the communication channels for effective interactions. He said the platform will also create an avenue for partnership with multinational corporations and non-governmental organizations who are interested in improving living conditions of rural dwellers. Speaking on the mandate of the agency, Onyetiloye stated that the center will interface with the people across social strata to promote socio-democratic ideals through inclusive and participatory governance.
Government is about people. We want to be seen as running an inclusive and participatory government. We want people. We want this government to be seen that all of us in and out of the state, we are stakeholder in government program, in policy formation. We just don't want to create law for people. We want people to be.
I know that in furthering to this website, the whole world, the Osun is now open to the whole world. I'm sure that Osun indigenous and citizens, home and in diaspora, will be happy to witness this day that we are witnessing. This is historical. It is something to be remembered for a very long time.
Students of tertiary institutions in Ondo State, under the auspices of the National Association of University Students, have blocked highways in the state to protest the ongoing strike by the Academic Staff Union of Universities. The students called on the federal government and members of the union to reach a common ground in a bid to end the incessant strike bedeviling the education sector.
This time around, we are not ready to chicken out. As long as they want us to be at home, we prefer to sit down. We prefer to sit down on the road instead of sitting at home, because an idle land is the devil workshop. So instead of us to be idle at home, we prefer to stay on the street and show the government that we are tired.
Take proactive steps towards solving this, because I don't think, with the way things are going, with what I have seen, I don't think Nigerian students are ready to leave the streets if we don't go back to class.
Take as long as the federal government adheres to our request that they should end ASUU strike, because this ASUU strike of 18 has been an annual festival and which has been depriving the students from having access to quality and good education. Our calendar in various institutions has changed. A student that want to spend 4 years in university ending up spending 6 to 7 years.
It's over now to business news for today.
In business, air passengers are lamenting the recent 100% hike in airfares by domestic airlines in the country.
I'm not happy about it. I'm not sure any Nigerian will be happy about it. Almost like 100% increase. Like now, almost all the way airline, there's no airline less than 50,000 naira to Lagos. That is too much. But the reason I don't know anyway.
There's no direct flight to Calabar. So I have to take Benin and either Lagos or Abuja and then Calabar. So I spend like 100k plus, which is not nice. That's like somebody's salary. That's crazy.
If the road is okay, there's nothing stop anybody from driving his car. They should fix up the road, put security, and let the road be free. Then we are going to lessen the pressure on the airport activities.
They called on the Federal Competition and Consumer Protection Commission, FCCPC, to intervene and bring down the fares. They urged the FCCPC to unravel the reason for the sudden hike in airfares by the domestic carriers. In another development, the Nigerian Railway Corporation has disclosed that it is making efforts to curb vandalism of the Lagos-Ibadan railway infrastructure and other issues on the operation of the railway. The agency said it's liaising with various security agencies and also making provisions of 6 vehicles and motorbikes for the security to patrol the railway tracks and ensure that actions are taken quickly against vandals. The agency said it now patrols the tracks with rail bars to detect if there is any clip or rail disconnection that can lead to an accident on the railway. That ends the business news for today. I am Oluwayemisi Okweodo.
Thank you, Yemisi. Over now to our editorial review for today with Odwayo Olayinka.
The Nigerian Tribune newspaper editorial for today focuses on the move to promote Yoruba culture. The paper also notes that the Commissioner of Education in the Southwest states has said to meet deliberate on how to protect, preserve and promote the Yoruba culture. The paper states that part of the objective of the meeting is to examine the roles of Yoruba as a tool for development, national building, youth empowerment, national unity and peaceful coexistence. The paper says that the aims of the meeting is to discuss the coming annual Yoruba language millionaire contest among secondary schools in all Yoruba-speaking states for the reclamation of the youth hooked to foreign ways of life. In conclusion, the paper calls for a change to start the use of our mother tongues like Yoruba as a language of instruction in primary education with adequate teaching of English as a subject on its own than the practice of using English for all subjects. On its part, the Vanguard newspaper editorial for today focuses on Abba Kyari trial for the National Drug Law Enforcement Agency. The paper laments that despite the fact that the former Inspector General of Police Intelligence Response Team, Abba Kyari, was suspended by the Nigeria Police Commission, the NDLEA has revealed that Abba Kyari is still on active duty despite the announcement of his suspension. It will be recalled that Abba Kyari was suspended after he was accused in USA for alleged money laundering in league with Instagram celebrity Raymond Abbas, alias known as Hush Puppy. It further lamented that the law enforcement in Nigeria is very weak because of highly connected individual trample on the law and due processes. In conclusion, the paper urges the criminals of short orders to be caught and taught a lesson to serve as a deterrent to others. That ends the editorial review for today from some of our national dailies. I am Odayo Olayinka.
Thank you, Oduayo. Sports news is coming up next with Kenny Bamidele.
In sport, former Norwich City manager Daniel Fark has left Russian Premier League side Krasnodar without taking charge of a match. The German joined the club in January and had signed a deal until the summer of 2024. He was set to manage his first games last weekend against Lokomotiv Moscow, but following Russia's invasion of Ukraine, operations at Krasnodar Airport were suspended and the fixture was postponed. His decision to leave Krasnodar follows the resignation of fellow German Markus Kisdol as the manager for Lokomotiv Moscow today. Meanwhile, Roman Abramovich's future as Chelsea owner is in doubt after a Swiss billionaire claimed he has been offered the chance to buy the club. Hansburg-wise Weiss told reporters that Abramovich wants to get rid of Chelsea quickly after the threat of sanctions was raised in the parliament. Chelsea manager Thomas Tuchel voices frustration over Roman Abramovich questions.
For me, as a coach and in charge of the first team, that decision does not change too much in the daily business, because I'm in a daily exchange with Petr Cech, and I'm in a very regular exchange with Marina about how to improve the first team.
Chelsea have not chosen to respond to the claims of the 86-year-old Weiss. The West London club have always previously denied reports that they are up for sale. In boxing, Tyson Fury says he will retire after next month's defense of his WBC title against fellow British heavyweight Dillian Whyte in London, stating he has nothing to prove.
I'm going to try and come in at my heaviest weight of all time. For the biggest fight in the biggest crowd, you're going to see the biggest Tyson Fury. I'm going to come in like a man mountain. What was my biggest weight? Can anyone tell me? I think it was like 19 stone 11, was it? 19 stone 10. I'm going to come in heavier than 19 stone 10. I'm going to be the heaviest world champion ever. I've been across the Atlantic Ocean, in the exotic venues of MGM Grand, T-Mobile, Staples Center. And I just feel like the song Thin Lizzy, the boys are back in town. 4 years away, and I get to come back and showcase on the world's biggest stage at Wembley Stadium.
And lastly in sport, in Formula 1, Max Verstappen is poised to sign a lucrative new deal to keep him at the Red Bull for the next few years, according to reports in Netherlands. The world champion's existing deal with Red Bull expires in 2023, and the newspaper says the new one would extend it by an additional 4 or 5 years. Report in Formula 1 says Russian drivers have been banned from competing in the UK by the National Motorsport Authority. Motorsport UK will refuse to recognize licenses of competitors from the Russian Federation until further notice. It means Nikita Mazepin cannot race in July's British Grand Prix, even if he continues to be part of the Haas team. And that is all we have for you from sport. I am Kenny Bamidele. Good evening.
Annual Wako Morning has more stories from the foreign scene.
United States President Joe Biden has told the United States lawmakers that Vladimir Putin badly misjudged how the West will eat back once he invaded Ukraine. In a primetime speech delivered at plenary, Biden vowed an unwavering resolve that freedom will always triumph over tyranny. In an hour-long address to lawmakers, the Democratic president said Putin's war was premeditated and unprovoked.
6 days ago, Russia's Vladimir Putin sought to shake the very foundations of the free world, thinking he could make it bend to his menacing ways. But he badly miscalculated. He thought he could roll into Ukraine and the world would roll over. Instead, he met with a wall of strength he never anticipated or imagined. He met the Ukrainian people.
He announced that the United States will ban Russian aircraft from American airspace, following similar bans by Canadian and European authorities. Elsewhere, at a special session of the United Nations General Assembly, African envoys have condemned the maltreatment of African nationals who are trying to flee Ukraine. Africans, mostly students, accused Ukrainian security forces of radically profiling and stopping them from getting on trains. The report of discrimination have caused uproar and left a bitter taste in Africa. Matthew Joyini, South Africa's ambassador to the United Nations, and Bedele Ndong-Ela, the Gabonese ambassador to the United Nations, speak on this development at the United Nations plenary.
South Africa endorses the statement issued by the African Union Commission expressing concern that the treatment given to African nationals and people of African descent at the borders of Ukraine, some of whom are not allowed to cross and move to safety.
We echo here the outcry of African students who are fleeing the war in Ukraine and are facing discrimination in their exodus in search of shelter. This situation is unacceptable.
It will be recalled that many African students have cried out on the social media, narrating how they have been passed by to allow Ukrainians and other European nationals cross the border into Poland first. And Uluwapo Moride, Impact Business Radio News.
The news was produced and edited by Mary Ojo. I am Tolu Walike Ali. Good evening and thank you for listening.